Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we are opening the vault on a massive hidden world. It's something that affects every single one of us, yet, it almost entirely operates in the background of our daily lives. I'm talking about government spending. We all know governments collect taxes, right? But how exactly do they spend that money to build our roads, equip our hospitals, and run our cities? Well, it's a complex mechanism that moves trillions of dollars globally, and today, we're going to break down the science of how we can actually fix it.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because the sheer scale of this spending is just staggering. Globally, countries spend between 15 to 20% of their entire gross domestic product just acquiring goods and services. Think about that for a second. Up to a fifth of a nation's total wealth is poured into this single administrative function. It is a monumental transfer of public funds into the private sector just to get the basic things a society needs to function.
But this brings us to a massive, literal trillion-dollar question. If governments are spending a fifth of their wealth buying things, why is the process so frequently broken? I mean, we constantly hear stories about delayed infrastructure projects, inflated budgets, and wasted taxpayer funds. With stakes this incredibly high, this massive expenditure is often plagued by lost funds and rampant inefficiency. So, to figure out how to stop the financial bleeding, we need to understand the machinery at work.
So let's ground ourselves with a clear definition. This entire system is called public procurement. Simply put, it's the process by which governments act on behalf of the public, spending our funds to acquire the goods and services required for public projects. Financial powers are delegated to government functionaries who are supposed to make these purchases in the best public interest, getting the absolute utmost utility out of every single dollar or rupee spent.
Now, a healthy and functional procurement system doesn't just happen by accident, right? It stands on four essential pillars. First, you have a strong legislative framework that sets the rules. Second is institutional arrangement and management capacity, which basically means the people running it actually know what they're doing. Third, procurement operations and markets, ensuring fair competition. And fourth, integrity and transparency. These pillars are deliberately designed to ensure absolute accountability and get maximum value for public money.
Part 1. Where the money leaks, the hidden costs of government buying.
Now, what's really interesting about this is, if those pillars exist, why do budgets still fall short? Well, every purchase has a life cycle where costs can quietly balloon. Researchers categorize these financial leaks by contrasting expected costs against hidden ones. You've got transaction costs, which are part of the usual course of action, preparing tender documents, paying external experts, legal fees, that kind of thing. But then we have non-transaction costs. These are the unusual, suspicious actions that actively drain budgets. We're talking about bribery, the massive costs of having to cancel and retender a project, or uncontrollable delays.
To really visualize this administrative burden, let's walk through Pavel's taxonomy of transaction costs. Look at how complex a single purchase can be across time dimensions. Before the purchase even happens, in the ex-ante phase, you have the expensive preparation of documents. During the ongoing phase, you're drowning in successive tender administration and legal costs. And even after the fact, in the ex-post phase, there are costs for contract amendments or cancellation delays. It's this heavy bureaucratic weight that requires absolute precision to keep from collapsing.
And when that precision is missing, well, loopholes open up. In complex, poorly monitored procurement systems, these loopholes allow cartels to form and corruption to thrive. To put this into perspective, in the 2020 Corruption Perception Index, Pakistan ranked 124 out of 180 countries. Researchers noted that a major source of this corruption was found directly within public procurement and contract management.
Part 2. The Punjab Procurement Study. Testing Efficiency in a Developing Economy.
To solve this problem, we're looking at a comprehensive academic analysis of the 2014 public procurement rules in Punjab, Pakistan. It really serves as a perfect microcosm for testing efficiency in a developing economy. To understand these rules, we have to briefly trace how the system evolved. It started way back in 1947 with a simple purchase manual for foreign-funded projects. It jumped forward in 2002 with a federal presidential ordinance, then shifted to provincial control in 2009. Finally, the 2014 Punjab PPRA Act was introduced specifically to combat the slow dispute resolutions and complex appeals that were bogging down the system. The goal? To standardize international best practices.
To figure out if these 2014 rules were actually working, researchers conducted in-depth surveys with 325 public procurement experts across government institutions. Now, these are mostly middle management, highly educated professionals holding master's degrees. The data reveals a pretty stark demographic reality in this specific government sector.
86% of the experts surveyed were male, with females making up only 14%. It's a fascinating look at the very people who pull the levers of this massive spending machine.
Part 3, 5 Keys to Efficiency, the blueprint for saving billions.
Taking the data from these experts, researchers ran rigorous statistical analyses to extract a blueprint for stopping government waste. So the crucial point is, they proved that achieving economy and transparency essentially boils down to 5 specific factors: capacity building, a strong redressal system, the use of ICT, or information and communication technology, careful procurement planning, and optimizing tender advertisements. When a government masters these 5 steps, the entire system transforms. Let's look at the statistical impact of these factors. The regression analysis yielded beta values, which basically tell us how strongly each factor drives efficiency. Notice how a strong redressal system had a massive statistical impact of nearly 1, 0.994 to be exact. This means that having a fast, democratic, and transparent system where contractors can easily submit grievances and challenge unfair practices is the absolute most effective way to fix the procurement process.
But right behind that is capacity building. Procurement is ultimately run by humans, right? Providing consistent, high-quality training programs for government staff directly reduces the errors, misunderstandings, and malpractices that end up costing taxpayers money. When human resources are well-conversant in supply chain management and negotiation, they naturally drive better value and strict transparency.
Another major fix is how the government communicates. Just contrast this. The outdated old method required mandatory, highly expensive newspaper advertisements for any tender over 5 million rupees. I mean, that's a huge drain on the budget just to announce a project. The study strongly recommends shifting to the new method, leveraging information and communication technology, e-procurement portals, and even social media platforms to spread information cost-effectively and instantly to a much wider pool of bidders.
Then there's the undeniable power of simply looking ahead. Requiring agencies to conduct annual procurement planning completely changes the game. By uploading their entire year's buying plan to their website at the start of the financial year, governments prevent panicked, abrupt buying decisions, which almost always lead to overspending. It gives suppliers time to prepare and lock in price rates, which drastically reduces the risks of inflation and cuts off avenues for backroom corruption.
Part 4, Smarter Spending, Better Future. Why this matters for your tax dollars.
Let's move to and see how this builds into something that affects you directly. It's super easy to look at statistical regressions as just bureaucratic paperwork, but it affects your own tax dollars every single day. Here's a number you absolutely must remember: 1%. Empirical evidence shows that implementing these specific procurement reforms can improve a country's spending efficiency by 1% of its entire GDP. For most nations, 1% of GDP represents billions, sometimes hundreds of billions of dollars. That is money that's currently evaporating into thin air through inefficiency.
As the researchers brilliantly point out, fixing this bureaucratic red tape isn't just an accounting exercise to save money on paper. It's a very real, tangible opportunity to redirect massive amounts of funds. Imagine those billions being poured into the depriving sectors that actually improve our lives. We're talking about building state-of-the-art hospitals, funding world-class education, and securing vital municipal services. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. We've seen exactly what the data proves is necessary for a transparent, efficient government. The question is, does your local government use modern e-procurement portals? Do they publish an annual procurement plan to protect your tax dollars? The solutions are hiding in plain sight. It's up to us to start asking the right questions. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.